In the sport of football, our hamstrings, or the three muscles behind our legs that we often think of just one muscle, but they're actually three, it's pretty susceptible to injuries. Why is that? Well, we sprint a lot in football. We change direction a lot of football, and a lot of that has to do with our hamstrings and how they move. The action of shooting is a really interesting example because the leg on which we're standing is loaded and also needs its hamstring to perform its best function, and the leg that's coming through needs its hamstring as well. So the hamstring has a function in pretty much everything we do in football. But how can we train it most efficiently and correctly for our needs? There's two specific ways that I like to train the hamstrings that are really important. We often, due to time constraints, can only train one or another, but it's really important that we don't let that fall away and we do actually train both so that we're not as susceptible to injury. A common place that footballers feel those hamstring injuries the most is right at the bottom of the buttocks or right inside of that butt cheek, almost like underneath it. So that's where the hamstring attaches underneath the gluteus. The other one is the actual muscle belly of the hamstring, which we feel a little bit lower, and that's just above behind the knee. That's the one that curves out a little bit. Now we want to train both of those in order to stay resilient, and those are two kinds of exercises, two different methods of training the hamstring. So let's dive in and take a look. The first method that we want to take a look at for hamstring training is one that directly affects this specific injury. So if your athlete or you as an athlete tend to have more hamstring pain underneath that butt cheek, and that tends to be what irritates you the most, then make sure you're doing this exercise. Again, when we're going to that end range of motion here, that's where I start to have the problems with my hamstring if that's not strong and resilient. One great way to train this is the classic deadlift, single leg deadlift. Any kind of deadlift variation is going to do this, especially a stiff leg deadlift. And that's more of a straight-legged movement, not that curl movement. Second example, a back extension of some kind. This is a little big for me, but we're doing the same thing, right? I'm in the straight leg position, and then I'm bringing myself back up. Another classic method of training the hamstring curl, perceiving that we're actually just training the muscle belly, this part that curves out of the hamstring. How we're gonna go about that, yes, any hamstring curl position, but a regressed version of that would also be doing a glute bridge, for example, completely on the ground or raised. This is the one leg version. You can also do it with two legs. You can also do it with feet raised on a box. But we're gonna focus today on the stability ball hamstring curl. This is one of my favorites, especially for footballers, because you can do it on the pitch, you can do it in the gym, you can pretty much do it anywhere. Lifting the hips, driving the heels into the ball, and pulling it underneath us. Not just moving the legs here, that's doing very little. That would be like a stage 1 rehab movement, stage 2 at the very latest. So we really want to, again, dig those heels in, get those hamstrings activated, and pull it as far underneath us as we can, slow and controlled on the way out. Now, if that's too easy, we're going to do it with one leg. And again, slow and controlled on the way out. While we all obviously want to avoid injury, sometimes we don't always know what the best ways to do our training are, especially on common injuries like hamstring injuries that seem to just happen. Make sure you're training both of these areas. Make sure you're focusing on the entire range of motion, especially if your players or you as an athlete are more often getting hurt in the sprint or in jumps. Make sure you're training that full range of motion so that you are strong and resilient both at the top of your hamstring and in the body by using both of those exercise variations. Have fun and stay healthy.